Smithfield is arguably one of Belfast's most historic areas. Today, I have come to take a walk down memory lane with the last residents here on Winetavern Street. Angel and Brenda Torley can trace their family's presence in the area back to the 1800s. Their grandmother was born in the house in which they currently live in 1911, and their mother was born in the same house in 1931. Angel, Brenda, first, thank you for agreeing to sit down and chat with me. So how far back can you trace your family to this area?
Well, it would have to be the 1800s sometime because I know my great granny and her sister Sarah, they were McGee's. From what we've been told by the other old residents in the area, and way years like before my mummy died, one of the oldest residents, Lily, that's in that photo here, I think there's that Sally and Teresa, had said, God, it's amazing. You do know that your granny and her sister were the first residents to actually come to live in Smithfield. And I said, God, no, I didn't. So it was actually great granny's sister was here, and our great granny lived up the street in number 13. And then when Sarah moved round to Gresham Street, granny moved down, or great granny moved down into here. So there's been one generation sort of after another. Said started with McGee's, then you had Lochran, then you had Fields and Toner, and now you have Torley. And there's two generations of Torley below us, plus all the Fieldses whose mothers or fathers stayed here with their granny, which was our great granny. So it'd be impossible, James, really just to work out exactly how many. It's around what, six then, I suppose, if you're counting Alex.
It has been suggested that some of the first to settle in the area were Irish speakers from Omeath. Is that something that you can trace your history back to?
No, believe it or not, Armagh. Mm-hmm. And there's still relatives down in Armagh. The thing that we also discovered was the Torleys, although my daddy's father came from Massachusetts. His father was a cavalry vet. He came here during World War I, met our granny, and that was sort of history then. But his that would be the great grandfather on the Torley side. He was apparently a circuit judge, but his family before him had immigrated again from Armagh. Can you believe? It's strange that both sides of the family originally came from Armagh.
Now, prior to the bus station being where Smithfield Market is currently located, there was a police station on your family's doorstep. How did that impact them?
Our great granny was the cook in it. Jane Fields or Jane Lochran. I'm not sure which was at the time that she was the cook over in it. But we only remember the street when Smithfield bus station was across the way there. It was a very close knit community around here. We were the only family with kids when we were growing up in Winetavern Street. But Samuel Street, all our friends, and Millfield and the bottom of Brown Square, we all played together. I mean, in the heart of the Troubles, there was no play parks or community centres or anything. So, from the oldest of the young people around here, the kids then, which I suppose would you'd be talking maybe 9 or 10, and us wee toddlers, everybody played together, and that community has still remained very, very strong to this day.
And growing up, you would have had the GPO and the Grand Central Hotel only a stone's throw away. You also had the bus station on your doorstep. What was it like growing up in the city centre during the Troubles?
To be honest, we didn't really know any different, I think, would be the honest, I think, answer to that. I mean, we had the controlled explosions generally at least once a week over at Smithfield. There was one of the days where we were taken by surprise. I was here at the house, it must have been a day off work, and my Dobermans collars and leads were in, well, their collars were on them, but their main leads and things were in the car. And when the cop run in, he shouted, right, everybody out now, this is about to go. And I wouldn't leave without the dogs. So because I couldn't find the leads, he had left the door open. The two Dobermans, Finbar and Boris, run across and started attacking the robot. I'm in panic station at this, but all I could think to do, I never thought of checking the car, which I should have done. I run over and I grabbed them two by the collars. And the next thing, the big cop comes behind me, grabs me by the scruff of the neck. He actually run me and the two dogs out of the street. It ended up we had to leave them round in St Patrick's. It was an old boxing hall. They were in the boxing ring for the day while we were out the whole day with the controlled explosion. Or it may have been one of the days that the thing did go. 9 times out of 10 we came back, there was no windows here. The door was blew off. There was no bedroom windows, and it was just something that you get on with. I mean, it didn't really impact on us that this is wrong and this is dangerous and it's something that shouldn't be happening. The community here all stood very much together. They helped each other out. You know, there was a bond maybe through the troubles that you don't see nowadays in most areas. There was other times when you'd have seen a controlled explosion going on in the street, and my mum and my daddy would have said, I'm not going out again, it's probably just a control one, there'll be nothing. My mum would come out the nosy and she had still the shop here. She looks across the window and the grills were already off at this stage. The thing exploded. One of the bars broke away from, I don't know whether it was part of them railings over at Smithfield the way it is now, came in through the window and actually went in through her hair. She ended up with a perforated eardrum, but at the time it was rushing to get her out because of the blood. We had grabbed what we needed to get out our bags and things in her bag, and we're searching the area. Where's my mummy? Where's my mummy? Has anybody seen my mummy? And one of the guys up the top of the street there shouted, she's round the sex shop. You know, and in normal times you'd probably go, what? But right, okay. So we went down there, she's sitting, they didn't have a box of hankies, and she was kind of crying because of the pain that was in the air and whatnot. And they had a toilet roll out for it. So when we went in, we were saying to her, Mummy, there's an ambulance, but we didn't know where you were. You have to go to hospital to get checked out. She's sitting in the sex shop with the toilet roll. Me and her and my daddy goes in, and her eyes are kind of, trying not to look at anything. Things that you took as everyday normality, which now you'd probably go, geez, did I really walk into a sex shop and just say, Mummy, come on, there's an ambulance here for you? But, there was some really fun times, there was some sad times, but you took it in your stride. We're the only ones left here now, as you know yourself. We would really truly love to see neighbours back, not these apartments and flats that are getting put up all over the place. Real neighbours, that you're seeing a bit of life in the street. Like Smithfield Market over there is down on its feet. There's none of the old people there, they're all newbies that came when that was built. And most of the ones that were in even the prefabs, they're all gone. So there's nobody that you could say, oh God, well, they were even in the old market.
You had mentioned that your mother had a shop. What was that like?
But I think because we were sort of born into it, yes, it was the most normal thing possible. I mean, it started way before any of us were born. It was a grocery, supermarket, sweets, cigarettes, turf, that type of thing. And then gradually, as things changed in the area, it became a second-hand clothes shop. And for us growing up in that atmosphere, it was funny because we got to dress up and play in high heels and, put these big long floaty dresses. And so, yes, it was amusement. We were spoiled rotten, I have to say, with our customers. As kids used to love, especially our friends that come in, particularly on a Saturday, because you made a wee fortune. Everybody was in, and you were getting 50p here or a pound there. Or the ones that were more well off, you maybe got £2 or £3. So the weekend, I mean, you just wanted to go and spend. We had Leisure World in the town at that stage, plus all the other wee toy shops. It was like a meeting house here, really. It didn't really seem different or odd to us. It was just the most natural thing in the world. There was always a shop. When my mum we retired, to be honest, we found it more odd because you had another room, and without the shop, what were you supposed to do? Or, but really, Castle Court, I think, killed off any business that there was around here, which is why all the original shops that you used to have in the area, like Andy Crow's, the Butchers, O'Hara's, we even had Dunn's for a while, but there was different wee sort of sweet shops and fish and chip shops and grocery all in North Street. Castle Court cut everything off, so the people from sort of West Belfast weren't coming through this way because there was nothing really except Castle Court to come through. Primark then became one of the big things, and I think it done a lot of harm to the smaller shops in round about here because you couldn't compete with our prices. So at that stage, my mummy had the problem with her heart. She needed to have a triple bypass, and at that stage, we just says to her, like, call it a day. You need to look after yourself now, and it's been the way it is, I suppose, from then. But it was fun growing up in a shop.
Oh God, yeah. Getting you out there every weekend.
And especially then when she changed over, say when we went out to go to work, we didn't know what stock was going to be. There was her and Mary Flood, one of the original dealers in Smithfield, and if there was a shop closing down, was when the original Smithfield was burnt down, which by the way we slept through as kids. We didn't know a thing, wondered why all the traders were in were black faces the next day and leaving stuff in. You couldn't move in the shop here. What stuff they could sort of save they had stored here until they could get everything moved. And as I say, we literally slept through it. We didn't know a thing was going on. So that shows you how used we were to bombs and what was going on in the town. It just went right over your head.
And then when they took Samuel Street away, it also killed round here.
Was it? They were the last remaining families that there was. And it's terrible when you have no neighbours. It's only, say for instance, your lights go out in the middle of the night, or if you're in the middle of doing something and you come and you track or check the trip switch and there's nothing wrong with it, and you're saying, gotta wonder such and one's late, and then you're going, just there's nobody even you can really flip and ask here. Now we're used to it. We'll usually phone somebody in Carrickhill to see is the lights off if all the street lights are off too, but really we would love to see the area built up again to what it used to be, and to be honest, I don't ever see that happening.
And of course, the bus bar was also located next door to your home. What was that like?
We used to play in it as kids. We were allowed to play with tills, and if my granny or my mummy needed change here for the shop, should it have been a £5 note or a £10 note, we were able to run in and sort of do it ourselves at the till. We're still close with the trainers that are still living. The older ones, my mummy's age and my granny's age, naturally, are all dead now, but they're still Carlingford and Dundalk. And if they're up in Belfast, they will call round in to see us. The couple of days after the explosion, John and Pat had left all, the wee uh, tables and the wee stools for us to play within the gateway there. And there was a lot of crates which hadn't sort of, don't know how they weren't destroyed in the explosion, but it was crate after crate. It was Fanta and Coke. So the trainers had just left it for all the kids in the area, so we were able to play our own wee bar in the gate.
Now, back in 2006, the Andersonstown News reported that there were plans to knock down Winetavern Street. We spoke to your mother at the time. How did that pan out?
We had a visit from one of the head management over in Castlecourt. He came over and he had said, I understand you've been here a very long time, longer than what he had expected us to be here. So he said, look, to be honest, I know there has been a run battle between Castlecourt and yourselves for a long time, yous are the only thing now that are standing in the way of us being able to redevelop. He did explain to us that they wanted to completely flatten here. This was the extent for a loading bay and a car park. And he told us the name or price. And when we said to him, we've no intentions of leaving, where would we go? Chris McGempsey was the local councillor for the area. Chris was Ulster Unionist, and Chris stood by our side and advised us the whole way down the line, and he's remained a very, very good family friend. I think it was in 1993 Chris came. We had just had the house fire here. Myself and Brenda were in Spain when it happened. It was an incendiary device that was in a new sofa that had just been brought in. My daddy had been out to the door to have a cigarette, thank God, for it was where he was sitting. The thing exploded. Got at the place, Finbar and my Doberman and Gizmo, Brenda's cat, both died, but it was due to smoke and inhalation. Thank God there wasn't a hair on their heads burnt. So the Chris came at that stage to see what he could do to help. Blah de blah de blah, and the rest is, as you know, history. He's has been a family friend from then. But even with the fire, when we did get all sorts of offers, and again Castle Court that approached to say, look, rather than rebuild, would you not consider me? And said no. It's where we've been all our lives, generations before us. There's too many memories in the house to just up and leave. Although I do have to be honest, from my mummy's gone, it's not the same.